In 1847, in Dublin, Ireland, an author who will change forever the horror genre of literature was born. Known as a theater critic in his early years, he became later on one of the world's most famous novelists due to its historical fiction masterpiece inspired while visiting the English coastal town of Whitby in 1890. His name was Bram Stoker, and while at a local inn in the quiet little town, he envisioned a mysterious ship coming ashore from the mist of the endless sea. And from it, disguised as a black Cerberus from Hades running up the 199 steps to the graveyard of St. Mary's Church in the shadows of the famous Whitby Abbey ruins, the most malefic entity the world has ever seen, descended upon England. He was the fearsome and most dreaded Count Dracula reincarnated, coming from a land far, far away to the east, called Transylvania. And this is the true story of Vlad the Impaler, a national hero for his people, evil in person for his enemies. At the end of the First World War, Transylvania became part of the new Kingdom of Romania, a powerful regional ally of the winning Western powers against the tyrannical Austrian-Hungarian Empire. Through an unanimous decision, the Council of the City of Kronstadt, present-day Brașov, led by Mayor Karl Schnell, passed on the property rights of the Bran castle to the beloved Queen Maria of Romania. The famous castle became the favorite residence of Queen Maria, who restored it completely to be used as a majestic residence of the royal family, hidden at the edge of the southern Carpathians. Having an imposing architecture, projecting an aura of awe and mystery at the same time, the monumental medieval fortress was a perfect match for the picturesque landscape of rural Transylvania. The tranquil and idyllic atmosphere around the castle at the beginning of the 20th century was hiding. In fact, as it is the case with most of the fortresses and fortified churches of the medieval Transylvania, a tumultuous and dramatic past. The existence of the remarkable military structure is linked directly to one of the most important periods in Romanian history, and that is the arrival of the Saxon settlers and the fearsome Teutonic Knights in Transylvania. The Teutonic Order was the second most important military order after the Templars, formed in Palestine during the Crusades era. King Andrew II of Hungary, who ruled Transylvania, gave the knights the entire Burzenland area to inhabit and protect from the increasingly daring incursions across the Carpathians of the Pechenegs and Cumans, two confederations of warlike tribes from the east, who in the 12th century began to invade the Wallachian principalities neighboring Transylvania to the south. The Teutonic Knights erected a fortress in Bran, which in Old Slavonic meant gate, to serve them as an outpost and a military base for their activities along the southern Transylvanian border, before they were driven away in 1226. In 1377, King Louis the Great of Hungary granted to the Saxons of Brasov the right, and also urged them to build a castle in the area of the old Teutonic fortress that would control the strategic mountain pass across the Carpathians from Transylvania to the south into Wallachia. The chosen location was on a steep cliff that would offer a 360 degrees panorama over the surrounding hills and over the important Burzenland and Moesiu valleys. The construction was completed in 1388 and had a multi-purpose role, serving as custom location for the flow of goods and people from Wallachia into Transylvania, and also as an impregnable fortress against the Ottoman expansion, the new military powerhouse in the Balkans. The castle was operated and inhabited by a garrison of elite soldiers and mercenaries and also various officials. They were under the command of the lord of the castle, who was appointed by the king and usually selected from among the Saxons. His role in the entire military strategy of the Transylvanian kingdom became increasingly important over the next centuries. By the end of 15th century, the commander of Bran Castle also held the title of Vice King of Transylvania. In 1431, only 100 kilometers north of Bran Castle, in the heart of Transylvania, in the medieval town of Strasbourg, present-day Sighisoara, the second legitimate son of the Wallachian ruler Vlad Draco was born. He was Vlad the Impaler, the overlord of Wallachia, a national Romanian hero, an iconic figure of medieval Europe, a nemesis of Ottoman Empire and arguably one of the most famous rulers in world's history. The formidable warrior who constantly broke the rules of conventional warfare and diplomatic formalism during his time, a relentless punisher of disloyal, greedy, and mischievous noblemen who managed to snatch 3 times the throne of Wallachia from the hands of his arch-enemies, a swift disperser of justice capable of great deeds of righteousness and kindness towards the common folks, but also subjecting those who crossed him, from traitors and local elite aristocrats to foreign envoys, to unparalleled acts of cruelty that shocked even the despots of his time, a fierce fighter of Christian Europe against the Ottoman expansion, the loved and hated monarch with an appetite for shock and awe in the most unearthly way, became the ultimate source of inspiration for the fictional main character of Bram Stoker's bestseller, Dracula. Born in Transylvania, Vlad Dracula, or Draculaea in original Romanian pronunciation, never ruled Transylvania, and his connection with Bran Castle was minimal. In reality, the description of the fictitious Dracula's castle in Bram Stoker's gothic horror novel doesn't match the real Bran Castle, although they're both located in Transylvania. Modern historians began to have a different view of how much of an inspiration the 15th century real Vlad Dracula was for Bram Stoker. It is possible that Stoker only used the name Dracula that he most likely came across studying the books from Whitby's library about Transylvania and Wallachia inaccurately translated as devil, and the real inspiration to come from Elizabeth Bathory. She was an Hungarian countess and alleged serial killer from the powerful House of Bathory. Bathory and 4 of her servants were accused of torturing and killing hundreds of girls and women from 1590 to 1610. She and her servants were put on trial and convicted. The servants were executed, whereas Bathory, as noblewoman, was imprisoned for the rest of her life. Vlad the Impaler never established his residence at Bran Castle or controlled it, although he was allied with the Saxons from Bran and Brasov when he became ruler of Wallachia for the first time in 1448. However, he led his army passing through Bran in order to attack Brasov and punish the Saxons, who drastically increased custom taxes for the Wallachian merchants and traders during his second reign as Wallachian, between 1456 and 1462. They also allied with one of his usurpers, an arch-enemy who tried to kill him. His army devastated the suburbs of Brasov, killing scores of Saxons who he perceived as traitors, some of them being executed in the most gruesome ways. As an act of revenge, the Saxon chroniclers started to portray Vlad as a bloodthirsty, malefic despot, a hellish human creature and the ultimate personification of evil. Their descriptions of Vlad the Impaler and his abominable punishment of rebel Saxon aristocrats of Bran and Brasov had nothing to do with vampirism, since the whole concept wasn't known in the area at that time, being adopted in the local Romanian and Saxon folklore centuries later. Many attributes most likely coming from the very letters and works about vampirism of Bram Stoker, but none of them referring to blood-sucking for survival and multiplying. However, there are quite a few similarities between the Bram Stoker's era vampires and malefic creatures of Romanian medieval folklore, and all these aspects will be discussed in our next video of the series. So although Bran Castle was never the official residence of Vlad Dracula, nor does it resemble the castle of the dreadful Transylvanian Count from Bram Stoker's novel, it is an important historical location connected, albeit loosely, to the famous medieval Wallachian ruler, and as such it became over the decades one of the most iconic touristic landmarks of Transylvania and modern-day Romania. One of the most famous historical destinations of Europe, attracting hundreds of thousands of visitors from all over the globe each year, the epicenter of a booming local travel industry. Thanks for watching and subscribe for more.